Hi, Holyfrog here. So I wanted to make a video on tanking Ragnaros in World of Warcraft Classic as a Paladin. I'm gonna start off by saying there are some downsides to using a Paladin here. But there are also advantages, and I will get into this in a moment. But first things first, at this point in Classic, I think a lot of people, they may have seen videos of Paladins tanking raids and finemans. They have read guides from Paladins that have been tanking raids and finemans. They see forum posts with people saying they do it. But still, a lot of guilds and players, they are skeptical of letting a Paladin tank this boss, for good reasons. The mechanics of the fight, I think, are quite poorly understood by the majority of guilds. And this may lead to the guild to conclude that the Paladin is simply not viable as a tank on this boss. So, before I get into anything else, let's just look at how the mechanics actually work. So out of all the abilities that this boss got, there's only two that we really need to concern ourselves with. The first of these abilities is Hammer of Ragnaros, and I'll start with this because this only really applies to a Paladin tank. A warrior and a druid, they don't need to think about this ability because it can never hit them. What it does, it will target a random player with a mana bar, and it will knock back all players around them within 20 yards. A druid tank and a warrior tank, they can simply sit on top of each other in the same spot, and they're never gonna knock each other with Hammer of Ragnaros. But, however, for us, since we have a mana bar, this ability can target us, and it can knock everyone around us away. It's relatively easy to deal with this, however. You just need to stay 20 yards away from the other tanks. And the only thing you gotta think of is that healers also need to position so they're able to heal you. Because you will be standing 20 yards away from the other tanks, which means you may be out of range for some of the healers. Just make sure to check your positions before you pull, and make sure all the tank healers can actually reach you. Now the second ability, and this is the one I get the feeling a lot of people don't really understand. It's called Wrath of Ragnaros, and it is on a 25-second timer. Now the misconception here is that this ability, every 25 seconds, it's gonna knock all the melee and the tanks away if they're in melee range. This is how it worked on private server, and how you dealt with it there is you had your tanks stack fire risk gear so that they would resist the knockback, and you would have all the melee move away from the boss. You can still do this in Classic. It will make it a bit easier on the healers because, first of all, melee won't actually get knocked, and secondly, it allows tanks to be in full fire risk gear, so they don't have to think about threat in the same way. Alright, so let me explain how it actually works. What Wrath of Ragnaros does, every 25 seconds, it's gonna target 3 random people in melee range, and it's gonna send them flying. You can resist this with fire risk gear. However, if you have all your tanks and melee just stay in melee range of the boss, the chance that all the tanks are knocked is very minor. Secondly, what this ability does is whenever Ragnaros casts Wrath of Ragnaros, he will fully reset his threat table. Yes, that's right. Everyone's threat will be dropped to 0. That means, at the moment he's using Wrath of Ragnaros, if melee stays in, they may pull aggro, by critting a backstab, critting a bloodthirst, anything like that. It's therefore really important that the tanks are ready for this, and they can deal with that by either taunting, unloading all the rage in a shield slam or bloodthirst, or in the case of a paladin, make sure your global cooldown isn't locked, so you can cast a Greater Blessing of Kings right as the knockback hits. What this ensures is that the boss goes straight for you instead of starting to attack the melee. Now the thing with this tactic though, because your DPS is going to be in melee range, and they're going to keep DPSing as the threat reset happens, that means you actually have to produce a lot more threat than you would if everyone was running out. Warriors and druids, what they will do is they will just drop fire res for more threat gear. The advantage of having you as a paladin, however, is you don't actually have to do that. Since the majority of our threat comes from Greater Blessing of Kings, we can afford to be in 315 fire res. If we make sure we hit Greater Blessing of Kings just as the threat reset happens, the boss should go straight for us. And by being in full fire risk gear, we're gonna take much less damage than a warrior and a druid will. Because, well, we're gonna resist the majority of Ragnaros' damage. It also means we have a smaller probability of getting hit by the knockback. Now, whichever tactic your guild chooses to do, a paladin can easily do both of them. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give tanking Ragnaros a try and let me know how it goes.